All right, guys, welcome back to the Pocket Mads channel. It's Maddie here, and welcome back to Meta Monday, the weekly series where we analyze the Pokemon Pocket metagame and keep you guys up to date with everything going on in the competitive world of Pokemon Pocket. This past weekend was PMPT number 39, which coincidentally was actually the last PMPT tournament of our season. So we do these internal PMPT seasons, and at the end of them, we do our invitational tournament, which is actually really exciting. So this is the last weekend before B4 releases, and that's a crazy thing to say. The Mega Rayquaza set is coming in like less than 2 weeks, right? So this upcoming weekend will be the invitational, and then the next tournament after the invitational for our season 3 will be the first tournament in that new B4 season, which is really exciting. So this week is not only like the last kind of week or so of ranked, but it's also going to be the week where we get that teaser for B4 and all of the information regarding that new set, which is going to be just so exciting. I'm really, really happy for this next season in Pokemon Pocket, but kind of this new era, which I think will start after Mega Rayquaza comes out, which is really exciting. So you're going to want to stay tuned for all of that information. The invitational tournament is posted up on Limitless, so basically anybody with 8 points or higher in our ranking system for the season has qualified to play at the invitational tournament, and that comes to about 280 players. So if you are one of those players, you can go and check on our season rankings. We also have all of those players listed here on the tournament page to know whether or not you are qualified. And basically, it's an invite-only tournament. So if you go to register, you basically have to be logged into the account of which on Limitless has 8 or more match points for our season. So yeah, that's basically how it works, but the tournament should be pretty fun. Last time we did the invitational, we did like a standard 2-day event where we did a day 1 of Swiss rounds, and then day 2 was like our final cut bracket, just like we normally do with PMPT tournaments. We're going to be doing that again for this invitational tournament. That way it feels like a PMPT tournament, like a standard one. That way we can kind of stream it and do everything that we typically do. So I'm really excited about that. Anyway, it is this weekend, and I'm really excited. It's a fun time to really kind of crown a champion for the season, but also, you know, show some appreciation to the people that have played in our PMPT tournaments over the last, what has it been, like 3 months, I think is how long the seasons last for our tournament series. But anyway, in today's video, we're going to go ahead and dive into the final standings. But before we do that, we're going to hear from one of our awesome partners here, Whatnot. All right, guys, so you probably know that one of my favorite things about Pokemon Pocket is building decks and analyzing the metagame. But one of the best parts about Pokemon Pocket is opening the packs and getting one of those chase cards that you've been looking for such a long time. And if you're anything like me, today's sponsor is perfect for you, and that is Whatnot. Whatnot is the #1 live stream shopping app where you can watch live sellers and score everything from Pokemon cards and collectibles, sports cards, even comics, toys, and a ton more, all in real time. I've actually been hanging out a few times recently in some of these Pokemon streams, and it's surprisingly fun. You jump right into the live show, you chat with the seller and everybody else that's watching, and then, you know, when something comes up that you want, that you're interested in, it's super easy to grab it, right? I ended up picking up a really, really cool Zacian full art card, and you know, just watching the countdown and trying to win that bid on that card was super fun. And honestly, it's way more exciting than just sort of opening packs or just scrolling through kind of the online you know, singles market on some of these websites. Ooh, this Hops Zacian full art here. I'm gonna place a bid and see if we can win here. There we go, we won it. $9 for that full art Zacian. That's such a cool card. And I also really like that you're buying from real collectors and real small businesses that also genuinely love the hobby, right? That you're also interested in. It feels like you're more so hanging out with the Pokemon community than just shopping for Pokemon cards. And chances are, if you're into Pokemon Pocket, you're probably already a collector like me. So there's plenty of good chances that you'll find something that you really want on Whatnot. If you've never tried Whatnot before, you can go ahead and use my link down in the description below, or you can use the QR code on screen to get $15 off your first purchase anywhere on Whatnot. That means that card that I just got off the auction would have been free had I used my own promo code. So definitely go check it out. Thanks again to Whatnot for sponsoring today's video. I really, really do appreciate it. Definitely go check them out. Now let's get back to the video. All right, shout out to Whatnot. Thank you guys so much for, you know, helping out the channel. I really do appreciate it. Go check them out. They're awesome. But anyway, let's get into the final standings of PMPT number 39, which might surprise some people, to be honest with you. This was kind of a very interesting weekend. And again, the last tournament of this season before the Invitational, which is insane. But anyway, PMPT number 39, Wishful Wonders here. This is the final standings of the tournament. And yes, it was Dark Greninja yet again, somehow getting first place back-to-back weeks. Dark Greninja winning PMPT tournaments. It's kind of crazy when you think about this entire season. Yes, the metagame has been super spread out. There's so many other strong decks out there. You have Lucario, you have the dark type decks, you have water, you have fire, you have grass, you have the sleep scam, you have Altaria. So many strong things. And when you take a look at the average win rate, like Dark Greninja is not a deck that has been performing extremely well from an average win rate perspective. But that's the funny thing about these tournaments. Sometimes, even if a deck, isn't, sporting an incredibly high average win rate, it can still win. And we've seen that back-to-back weeks now for Dark Greninja. Second place was going to be Faizo from Turkey. By the way, first place is JLNG from the United States, so shout out to him. But Faizo from Turkey went 10-3 all the way to grand finals, and he was playing Sleep Altaria. So I think that might have been a repeat of like the last weekend, actually. I think maybe Altaria lost in top 4. But the decks at the top of the standings this weekend are almost identical to what they were at the top of the standings last weekend. A couple of minor changes. Fire-type decks a bit more prevalent here at the top. We see Mega Blaziken in 8th place, as well as 13th place. So shout out to those players. And then Fearless here in 12th place was playing Mega Charizard Y. So some more fire at the top of the standings. However, Faizo, 2nd place, Sleep Altaria. 4th place, so just outside of grand finals, was Froggy X Joe from France, who was playing Zoroark EX, a deck that's been very successful, a very strong deck, sporting a great average win rate this season, finding its way into top 4. And then we have Elaquides from Peru playing Mega Lucario in 4th place, but also 5th place is going to be Imp Zonais from France, also playing Mega Lucario. And then not only that, but we have Andre from Spain, also play Mega Lucario. So Mega Lucario finding its way 3 different times into top 8, and it definitely was a deck that I highly recommended, especially into this ranked season. I think Mega Lucario was an incredible deck, especially into the greater field. I just don't think it has to worry about a lot of the different things. Sure, it can lose to certain things, but at the same time, it's not a rare candy deck, so it doesn't get shut down by Chingling, and it has great reach. Mega Lucario is a great deck. And then Ray 14 from Italy made it in 6th place playing Suicune Baxcalibur. So Suicune does find its way here into top 8. However, you will notice that Lightning has fallen outside of top 8, I believe, once again. Toddy Fox and Extreme 6 Riles from France and Brazil in 10th and 11th place, both playing Miraidon Magnezone. So it was somewhat successful for sure. We have Pierre Figo from Indonesia, also 16th place playing Magnezone Miraidon, but nowhere in top 8 did it place, which is interesting. A couple more Suicunes, Magma Chocolate and Nobody playing Suicune Baxcalibur. And it's Light Shard, actually the only grass type deck anywhere hype in the standings other than 18th place, and I play Pokemans. And those are the Sceptile Greninja decks, right? So when you take a look at Blaziken and you take a look at Sceptile, at least so far this season and by the end of the season, those deck lists are primarily Greninja decks, right? And that's going to be, the deck that you guys all kind of know, right? They're very similar, Blaziken and Sceptile, but yeah, that's kind of the top of the standings. If you go down a little bit, we've got the Fossil Man making his return into 19th place, playing that Rampardo Snorlax deck that we did talk about from last weekend's tournament, a really awesome deck list. There was another Dark Greninja in 17th place, El Atomico from Colombia, but he was playing Dark Greninja without Sableye. But he did go 8-1, so had an incredible run. Another Sleep Scam, Altaria here with Espeon Liquid Edge from Portugal, 20th place. A Gardevoir Gaudy did find its way. Shout out to Indonesia, 21st place. So Gardevoir seeing a little bit of play. However, I do think still the default Psychic type deck, at least by the end of the season where we're at right now, is going to be Sleep Altaria. It is just kind of, in general, like the best option in most ways when it comes to playing a Psychic-based deck, but Gardevoir 21st place. And then here, Hosey from Japan went 6-1. He was playing Giratina Sableye. We'll take a look at that deck in just a little bit. We had a Dark Tina, just a standard Dark Tina, Magma the Vice from Germany, 28th place. We had a Lucario Greninja in 29th place. Shout out to him. And then if we go down a little bit, we have Isabella and Halfway from Puerto Rico and Australia playing some cool off-meta stuff, being Hisuian Gudra and as well as Superior Heracross, which are definitely pretty solidified, like off-meta, fringe meta decks that have been placing pretty well at tournaments throughout this entire season. They squeaked their way in here. And then we have Hockey TCG Pocket from Puerto Rico. Shout out to Puerto Rico, by the way. playing great Tusk, which I absolutely love. So yeah, that's basically like the bulk of the final standings there. Pretty much kind of what you would expect going into the season, other than I guess where those decks did end up placing. Like Dark Greninja getting first place to me is surprising, but the decks, when you take a look at top 16, the decks that are in there are all decks that we would kind of expect, right? Sceptile, Blaziken, Suicune, Miraidon, Lucario, Zoroark, Altaria, Dark Greninja. Like these are all of like the top decks of the metagame, right? And I think that this is kind of what people are playing. And when you play on the ranked ladder, it's going to be probably similar to this. You're going to see definitely maybe a bit more Hydreigon. Hydreigon's a deck that really just doesn't see much play right now. And it, again, like hasn't really placed that well. 24th place was our highest placing Hydreigon and kind of the only one anywhere high up on the standings, which is crazy. So definitely more of a Zoroark season to me. However, shout out to all these players, and again, big thanks to everybody for competing, and as well as tuning into the live stream, all of the judges, the casters, the moderators, everybody that makes the tournament happen. It's a really big thing, so it's really fun to see. And this was the last tournament of the season, coincidentally, and I honestly forgot about it until my Discord moderator Light Rain reminded me. He was like, "Hey, like this is the invitational weekend because the weekend after this weekend is B4, right? So we had to get the invitational out and start the next PMPT season." But anyway, let's dive into these deck lists, guys. We'll kind of tune in. We'll take a look at all of the decks that placed at the top of this tournament. We'll talk about if anything is a little bit different or whatnot. And then at the end here, we'll go into the metagame data and we'll break down the win rates and whatnot, because we'll see exactly what was happening this weekend other than the final standings. But yeah, Dark Greninja getting first place back-to-back tournaments is crazy. And this is going to be the deck list, which, to be fair, I believe is pretty much the exact same deck that we've been accustomed to seeing for Dark Greninja. And again, one of the most popular decks from the beginning of the season, Mega Sableye getting back-to-back wins. Which is really insane. So in terms of this season and competitive online tournaments, Mega Sableye might be the most successful new card, or just the most successful Pokemon in general. Probably Greninja, to be honest. Greninja is just so good, whether it is in Blaziken or Sceptile or Dark Greninja. This has been a phenomenal season for Greninja. But yeah, Greninja, Chingling, we have Absol and Sableye, which again, I never really understood why we need both of them. However, there is a use case for both of them. And then Darkrai EX, which continues to be, a meta relevant card. Double Research, double Copycat, one Lucky Egg, a great combo, tons of draw support with Chingling, slow the game down, we draw our cards, we get into our Greninja, and we deal a ton of damage. One thing that I really like about this deck is that Nightmare Aura plus Chingling can KO baby Pokemon, and it's honestly just a decent amount of damage. 2 Pokeball, 2 Rare Candy, and then a small balloon for free retreat on basically all of our Pokemon, other than Darkrai, which you still have to attach to, which is fine, right? Because you're going to probably want to attach to Darkrai anyway. So it's a really, really strong deck. It's incredible to me that Dark Greninja has been so successful in terms of like top placements over the last few weeks, because again, like this is a deck that's average win rate just doesn't end up doing that well basically every week. And I don't know why that's the case, but I know a couple of people that do play this in ranked battles, and they've been pretty successful with it. So yeah, I mean, just to me, it's crazy. Like, I'm not surprised that we've seen this deck do well, but back-to-back first place finishes is something we really don't see that often, especially by a deck that nobody really is considering to be like a top 3 deck in the metagame. The last time this happened, I believe, was Sceptile at the beginning of, was it last season or 2 seasons ago? It did win back-to-back, which is kind of crazy. But anyway, I mean, Chingling continues to be a broken card. So shout out to Chingling. Shout out to JLNG from the United States. And then in second place is Phazo's deck, and this is going to be Sleep Altaria. Yet again, a very standard version of Sleep Altaria. It's still a deck list that I think can easily win. I think what we probably saw, coming into the latter end of the season, and one thing that's a bit different, I believe, it may be to a lesser degree in tournament play and in the tournament meta, is that Sleep isn't nearly as common as you might kind of expect it to be. These are decks that haven't been performing extremely well at the beginning of the last couple of seasons, and whether it's Altaria or Milotic at the beginning of the season, none of them really did that well. I will say that Altaria has been performing quite well throughout this season, at least in the last week or two. Like, its average win rate has been respectable. It's been at the top of a lot of different tournaments. I just think that there's a lot of people playing like fighting type Lucario decks right now. That's certainly one of the top decks of the metagame, but just less and less people are like truly counter playing Sleep. Like, sure, like PCL is kind of all over the place and in a lot of deck lists, but you're not seeing a lot of Comfey. You're not seeing a lot of Ogerpon, right? The metagame is a bit different, and a lot of those decks that were kind of hard countering Sleep in the previous seasons aren't really seeing that much play. right? So when you take a look at the greater scope of the metagame, you'll notice that Sleep is still counterplayed. It's still something people are trying not to lose to, but they're not hard countering it as much. And I think right now, at least in tournament play, I actually think that Altaria in Espeon and Darkrai, like it's actually a really, really solid deck. Probably a top 5 deck to be playing in the metagame right now. Not that it's anything substantially insane. Like I don't think it's anywhere close to like tier 0. It's like borderline tier 1. So, I mean, at the end of the day, it's just a strong deck. People aren't going to love it. But back-to-back top 4 finishes for Sleep Altaria is somewhat, interesting. But there's not like a ton of them, right? I mean, there's one here in second place, and then the next one is in 20th place. So a lot more other decks were more successful in terms of total placements. Lucario is one example. Suicune is one example for sure. So like that's, you got to just kind of think about it like that. Like sure, Sleep does find its way into second place, but it's like nowhere anywhere else in top 16, right? So that's sort of something to keep in mind. And that's kind of really where I think Sleep is right now. It's just a really solid deck. Could easily win a tournament, could also like not find its way into top 16 at all. It's just sort of that type of deck currently in Pokemon Pocket. But you're probably going to see a bit more Sleep in ranked. We'll talk about that at the end of this week for sure. But yeah, anyway, shout out to Fazo. Third place is going to be Joe, and this is Zoroark. Again, to me, for my money, the best dark type deck in the game right now. Quite similar in certain ways to Dark Greninja. It's just that, you're going all in on the dark type strategy. Zoroark is a very, very strong card. One of the better cards in the entire game. I always go back to the 150 HP being really nice. There's just a lot of Pokemon that can't KO Zoroark, which means it typically gets like 2 to 3 attacks off, which in general is a really, really big deal. It's very consistent. Dark is a really great type, has so many different tools available to it, whether that is Roaring Moon or Bombardier or Darkrai EX, and then the finisher with Mega Absol. I do think Mega Absol, like I said in last week's video, Mega Absol is sort of the card for Zoroark, and I think it will continue to be. Dark Greninja and other decks, can kind of maybe get away with it a little bit more. But it's interesting that 2 of the best like basic Mega EX Pokemon right now are Dark type. That might change with Mega Rayquaza coming out soon, but for now, it's sort of an inherent advantage to the dark typing is you have a lot of really good, strong, dark, basic Pokemon, like Darkrai EX, Mega Absol, Mega Sableye. Just a really, really strong package altogether. Nothing else to really say here other than Zoroark continues to be a really good deck. One of the more consistent decks in the game, which is probably why I think a lot of people are favoring this over Hydreigon. I think, like, at least for the last couple of seasons, to me, it just feels like I'd rather play a deck that's more consistent and also, like, fast-paced, right? And I know Hydreigon's really strong from a high roll perspective, but it does have a lot of issues from consistency. And in general, Suicune also does beat Hydreigon, whereas I don't think Suicune beats Zoroark as consistently, right? So I really like Zoroark, and I think it's just a top 5 deck probably in the metagame right now. But let's take a look at Lucario, which is kind of the deck that's been a little bit more fluid than other decks, in the metagame over the last month or two. A deck that's been changing, even though the core concept of Lucario kind of is the same. You have some really kind of standard leadoff options, and then you go into Lucario in the late game, and you just hope that extra damage potential is enough to kind of win you the game. It's a very straightforward deck list. And here we see the Hitmonlee Furfrou, which has kind of been the standard this season. This Furfrou is extremely good. Somebody asked in the comments, like, why not just play Hitmon top? The main reason for that is that if anything in the active, like, has damage reduction or, like, is healing, like, basically, like, you either putting, like, more pressure on the active right now or you're putting more pressure on the bench, right? And I think that, like, yes, you could play Hitmon top, but at the end of the day, like, it also, if they've protected Poncho the bench and then you're just hitting the active for 20, it just doesn't feel as good. In general, I do think Hitmonlee with just 30 to the bench is probably just your best option if you were to kind of go the bench damage route. But then again, if you don't want to go the bench damage route, you just go into Furfrou, which to me is kind of the best lead-off Pokemon in Pokemon Pocket right now. It's very, very tanky, and it can deal 60 damage. It can KO basics. Furfrou is incredible, and it probably should see more play in most decks. But yeah, I really do like this deck list, and this is pretty much, I think, the exact same deck that we saw in last season. So the metagame, at least for Lucario, to me feels like pretty figured out. And this is going to be the fourth place version, Alakitas. But let's take a look here at Imp Zonice's deck, which should be very similar. And it is. I'm trying to see what he cut. He's playing just 2 of the Jab Riolu instead of one of the Punch Riolu. But other than that, I think the deck is like almost exactly the same. He is playing Actually, he's playing double Rocky Helmet. So this deck is playing 1 Lucky Ice Pop, 1 X Speed, and he was playing no Lucky Ice Pop and double Rocky Helmet, right? So a little bit less healing. I mean, 1 Lucky Ice Pop to me always is kind of funny because it's like, is it really that good if you're only playing 1 of them? But really all you need is the 1 Lucky Ice Pop to flip like 2 or 3 times on your Mega Lucario, and then all of a sudden you're not getting 2-hit KO'd, and that's like a really big deal, especially like in some matchups that can kind of be the difference. And there's not really too many other strong like healing options, right? You're going to play PCL anyway. So like that's the concept, right? PCL is going to heal Lucario for 30. So that brings your total HP pool to like 220. But if you flip heads like twice or 3 times on an Ice Pop, which isn't that crazy, then all of a sudden like that 220 becomes 240, 260, 280, and all of a sudden you're living 2 hits, and then you can attack 2 or 3 times with Lucario, and it's a pretty big deal. 1 protected Poncho as well, right? So I do think that Qian Pao and Greninja and stuff is definitely putting enough pressure on the metagame where you have to play Poncho, but to be honest, most decks are kind of playing like Field Blower or some way to kind of remove the Poncho anyway, but it probably is still worth playing. Those are the Lucario decks. And then here at 16th place, or 6th place rather, is going to be Ray 14 here playing Suicune Baxcalibur. Still got the Mars in here. So again, kind of a copy-paste from the last season. Again, these deck lists, we're at the end here. We're like 20 days into the season. So the metagame's been pretty figured out. This is the 3rd tournament, I think, of the season. So, I mean, at the end of the day, Suicune Qian Pao is so good. This is still a top 3 deck in the game, in my opinion. And it's going to be tough to really like see this deck kind of go anywhere. Like, I don't know if we're ever really going to see it. The Mars here is really funny. It's like the only deck in the game playing Mars. Yeah, I personally, I've been saying this for a while. I think that Suicune EX is like the best EX card ever printed. Maybe not accounting for Megas, and maybe Mega Rayquaza changes our mind about that, but this card is just so good. And it's tough. Like, Milotic is a really good card, and then we've had other strong water Pokemon added to the game, but it's really, really hard to release something that's just in general better than Suicune. And if it is better than Suicune, it's got to be similar to Suicune, because then why wouldn't you just play Suicune with it, right? You know what I mean? Like, that's the strange place that we're at right now with water type decks, is like, it's like either should it replace Suicune or would you just play it with Suicune? Like, it's got to be one or the two. Either way, like, it's just such a strong card. It's so easy to play 2 Suicune in your water type deck and just be better. So it's an interesting spot that we're in right now. I know some people may be a little bit disappointed about this. I do think we're going to get like some major meta shakeups to some core strategies next season. Like, I think the metagame could be entirely different when B4 releases, which I really do think it will. But it's been a while since Suicune wasn't that relevant, and I think it is still, one of the strongest decks in the game. I'm curious how its win rate was. Shout out to Ray14 playing Suicune 6th place. We had a 3rd Lucario in top 8, and this is going to be Andre from Spain. And now this Lucario deck is playing Fighting Coach, right? So this is, actually he's not. He's just playing a non-EX Lucario. So this Lucario deck is just interesting. This is actually the Close Combat Lucario, which does 90 for 2 energies, and then during your opponent's next turn, it takes plus 20 from attack. So it's just a 90 damage popper here, 2 fighting energy. You can 1 KO or a Choreo, so if you really just didn't want to do that, it's definitely not a terrible card in here. And we're actually playing double Fighting Fist Riolu, so neither of the jab Riolu, which I definitely find to be quite interesting. But everything else about the game, or about the deck list, is similar. No Rocky Helmet, we're playing Elegant Cape. So, okay, so this is a bit of a stretch, and then Zygarde, of course, instead of Furfrou. Zygarde's nice. It's definitely not a bad card. It's weak to Grass, which is fairly unique, and you can kind of slot it into the deck list. This is interesting. I mean, again, at the end of the day, Mega Lucario is Mega Lucario, and it's going to be able to win games, right? So, like, it kind of goes to show how much it doesn't really matter. Deck lists do sort of get optimized. They get standardized as seasons go on, especially, like, if a particular list, like, does well a couple of times, people just sort of gravitate towards it. But this is an interesting way to play Lucario. Again, I don't know if it's better than the other way, but most of the time, your games are going to be pretty similar because the win condition is just hitting for a lot of damage with Mega Lucario, you know what I mean? Although I do think Rocky Helmet is probably worth playing, because when you're playing Mega Lucario, like, the deck is all about reach and being able to, like, KO Pokemon. So I think, like, yes, you're playing Karina and Arena of Antiquity here, but Rocky Helmet is just sort of another layer to that. And while Elegant Cape does give you that extra HP, you're not playing PCL in this deck anyway, right? So I think, like, PCL plus Ice Pop plus Elegant Cape could be interesting because it could allow you to kind of live certain hits. Also, Elegant Cape on this Lucario is 130 HP, which is, like, somewhat interesting, although it does take more damage after you attack. So I don't know if you're really living multiple hits, but yeah, Elegant Cape, Mega Lucario is pretty tanky, 220. So if you kept the PCL in here with the Ice Pop. Maybe you play more of a sustain version. That could be interesting. We don't see as much sustain decks. If decks have the option of having more HP or dealing more damage, they more often or not are just going to deal more damage. You know what I mean? Like, that's kind of just like the way it goes. But yeah, and then lastly here, let's take a look here at Mega Blaziken here, because this is going to be the deck that we're all pretty familiar with, the Juliana combo between your Stage 2 Mega and Greninja. Lots of one-ofs in this deck list, but it works. I mean, this is a deck list that people do gravitate towards, and I think that it's a bit unfortunate that for the players that want to play both Blaziken or Sceptile, the best way to do that currently is with Greninja. At least that's kind of what the metagame for the tournament data is telling us. It's just sort of how broken Greninja is. You know, we've yet to really have a true hard counter to Greninja. Protective Poncho is nice, but again, they did give us Field Blower just recently, so it's sort of like, you know, like, you got to understand, Greninja is the best Pokemon in the game. When you take a look at total results, total placements, total win percentages, Greninja is the best Pokemon in the game. In fact, for the money, like just pound for pound, I think that Water Shuriken Greninja is the best Pokemon card ever in Pokemon Pocket. Like, even like aside from like some of the EXs like Darkrai and Suicune, like Greninja is the best card. It's the best card they've ever released, and it's inherently broken. So, you know, it's either going to be like like still one of the most relevant Pokemon just for the end of time. You got to remember, Greninja came out in the first set. This was an A1 card release. Like, ever since Pokemon Pocket's been out, Greninja's been out. And then as other cards got released, like Cyrus and Rare Candy and Juliana, like, it's just gotten better and better. So it's going to be really difficult to keep Greninja in check for the future. And I know some people just don't like it, but it's just a core part of Pokemon Pocket at this point, and it's going to continue to see play. And I think it always will. I think Greninja is just going to be something that we have to deal with. And now I think that it'd be nice to have other options, right? Like, it's weird to me that Greninja is the only card that really does this. Like there's other Pokemon that can attack the bench, but in terms of abilities that deal bench damage, like, Greninja's the only one. And again, it's much better than having a Pokemon that can attack and deal damage to the bench, because you can use the ability and then Cyrus and then attack with a stronger Pokemon after you brought it up to the active on that whole same turn, right? It's like this entire win condition. It'd be nice. Like, I know it might be too good or too crazy to see it, but I would like to see, you know, Water Shuriken type effects on more different Pokemon for more typings, right? Because that's the thing. It's like Greninja used to see play in water type decks, but it doesn't even anymore because water now has Chien-Pao. So now, like, the only decks playing Greninja are non-water type decks, because water type decks would just play Chien-Pao. And then again, it's just interesting, right? It's such a weird thing in Pokemon Pocket, and I kind of hope that changes. That whole dynamic does change. But anyway, here is Blaziken, Juliana Hiking Trail with the Cast Form combo there, and then Heatmore. And again, it's similar, right? It's similar to Sceptile, even Lucario, right? Heatmore is basically Hitmonlee, but fire type, and then Cast Form functions just like a Furfrou does. However, you know, you could cut the stadium and just play Furfrou in place of Cast Form, and it might probably be somewhat better. Although Hiking Trail does provide value just outside of satisfying Cast Form's attack condition. It's a strong card in general. But yeah, there you go. I guess real quick, we'll take a look at Light Shard Sceptile deck, because just to kind of illustrate the similarities here, very, very similar deck, right? So Juliana, 1/1 Greninja, 1 Sceptile, and then Pheromosa, which again just kind of acts like Heatmore, and then Furfrou instead of Cast Form. And you can see that the deck is effectively the same with the Cyrus, with the Rare Candy, with the Pokeball, except this time we're playing Small Balloon, just to have a little bit more consistency in our retreat options, and then we're still playing Hiking Trail, which is funny. And that kind of goes to show that Hiking Trail does provide value outside of the Cast Form attack, because why else would you also be playing it in Sceptile? So again, basically the same decks. Like, these are the same, they're the same decks. And it's just whether or not you want to play grass or fire, but basically. In fact, I think that this is probably a bit more of a consistent deck list, but, you know, as we know, Blaziken does get access to Flame Patch, so that is a kind of a distinct advantage that Blaziken has over Sceptile. But yeah, man, it's these decks are just, they've been rampant this entire season, and throughout last season. Juliana is a card that I don't think many people thought would have a profound impact on the metagame, but it really has. And we got to understand that right now this combo is sort of seeing play with Greninja and Sableye and Blaziken, but it could easily, like, Juliana could be like a glue card for future strategies for other stage 2 combos that we've really yet to see. And it's something that I'm actually, like, really curious whether or not we're going to see it in different ways or being utilized for different strategies in future seasons. And again, we're really at the end of the season, so these deck lists you've probably all seen before, but keep in mind B4 is right around the corner, guys, and the metagame will be changed forever. I don't think you got to understand, like, Mega Rayquaza is coming out, and the other cards coming in B4 are going to be pretty phenomenal. The metagame is going to look entirely different. It's going to be probably the biggest shakeup we've had in Pokemon Pocket for a very long time. That's my assumption. I mean, we don't actually know, but I'm pretty confident that's probably what we're going to be looking at when it comes to next season, which I'm excited for. And again, just a couple of days, we should get the teaser for that set. But anyway, shout out to all these players. This was the standings. Is this surprising to you guys? Before we wrap this up, let's take a look here at the metagame data, because I am curious. So Suicune was the most played deck at 10% meta share, the only deck above 10%, and it had a 53% win rate. 93 and 81 is definitely very impressive. Miraidon Magnezone struggling a little bit, maybe because there's more Lucario seeing play, but this went 61 and 70, and then Sleep Altaria was actually tied for the third most played deck at the tournament this weekend, and it had a 55% win rate, which is pretty incredible. And this goes to show, like, a lot of these other decks here probably not that well positioned into Mega Altaria and Espeon. 60 and 48 is a great record. Mega Lucario struggled tremendously, in fact, 35 and 60, probably because everyone started to play Sleep Altaria, which again does really well into Lucario. Mega Sceptile and Greninja struggled with a 45% win rate, 42 and 47. And then next up here is Dark Greninja, which unfortunately also had a really bad, it had the lowest win rate almost, other than Lucario here at 37 and 52, but it did get first place, right? So when you take a look at these players, basically nobody did really well with this deck. There's only one player that made day 2 with it, I believe, and they ended up winning. So there you go, right? Like, that's the crazy thing about Dark Greninja, is that it's back-to-back gotten first place finishes, but it really has been an underperforming deck list. Now, this version of Lucario here, so this is without Fighting Coach, actually did a lot better, 45 and 34. So I don't know why this version was more popular this weekend, but this is the version that is objectively just better. I don't know really why. Is this the one with, what is this? So this is the one with Lucario, yeah, with Fighting Coach. So, okay. So maybe just don't play Fighting Coach with Lucario, to be honest with you. And I guess your deck is just better objectively. I don't know. That's weird data. Zoroark did very well, though. 34 and 23. So it had a great run, these 10 players here. Multiple people making day 2, which is good to see. Hydreigon struggling, 19 and 27, so just not a great time to be playing Hydreigon right now. Also, this version went 10 and 16, so really big struggles for Hydreigon. This version of Dark Greninja down here, the only 4 people that played it without Sableye, I guess one player went 8 and 1, which probably boosted up this record here. So there was one player that did well with that version of Dark Greninja. And then yeah. Milotic actually continued to do pretty well. Hisuian Goodra went 7 and 4, which we love to see it. Butterfree Sceptile went 14-17, so nothing too crazy there. But yeah, Blaziken went about 50-50. So, I mean, that's what it's looking like right now. You know, if you're playing into this meta game, at least by looking at the decks that people are playing right now, you got Suicune, which I think is a great option. Sleep Altaria is becoming a much better option currently right now to end the season. Mega Lucario, if you're playing the right list, is still a really strong option. Zoroark is a great option here. And then things like Blaziken, things maybe like Magnezone or like kind of on the fence a little bit. But yeah, that's very interesting results. Very interesting. If you filter by win rate here, look at it's Fossil Man with back-to-back deep runs playing Rampardos, which, you know, you love to see. And Superior Heracross as well. Really cool. Okay, really interesting stuff. A lot of one-ofs here when you filter by the highest win rates. But anyway, there you go, guys. That's the standings. That's what happened here in PMPT number 39 this past weekend. The last open tournament of the season before our invitational, which is really exciting. And keep in mind, guys, we're going to be getting news about B4, about Mega Rayquaza this week in just a couple of days. This ranked season is wrapping up, so, you know, we're going to be kind of winding down, but then also winding back up extremely quickly, and it's going to be a really fun time here for Pokemon Pocket, which I'm really excited about. I really am. However, I bet everybody's just sort of playing Power World right now, which is totally fine. Shout out to Power World. But yeah, anyway, there you go, guys. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Again, thank you guys for 50,000 subscribers. Stay tuned for the Invitational Tournament this weekend. And if you did qualify, congrats to you, and please come out and compete. It's going to be a ton of fun. And like I said, guys, bunch of info coming this week, which we're going to be covering on the channel. I'll keep you guys updated which decks I would be playing for ranked and whatnot, which decks I believe are like the best decks in the game. I'm going to be covering all of that in the upcoming days, so I want to keep you guys up to date as this ranked season goes on. But there you go, guys. That's Meta Monday. Peace out. Have a good one. We'll see you guys later. And yeah. Bye.